something else happened when I was in Dubai, and I spoke about this once already, but I'm going to talk about it again with you because I think it's really important. Um, I met a group of people a couple of years ago when I went to Dubai that ended up becoming a group of friends that I hung out with, and it was a really amazing experience. A lot of people say that Dubai is full of superficial people with superficial things, but I met this group of people that were quite opposite of that. And I originally met them e-foiling, which is you take these kind of foil boards out there and you kind of can go out in the remote control. And I met this girl I knew, took me to meet these two guys. They had their own boards, they had their own pickup trucks, they were like jacked, and they get me on their board and they got me up, and we ended up hanging out in the boat together, and we ended up doing the dune buggy thing together. And it was actually a group of men and women that were just really cool, really into kind of pushing themselves athletically. And it was just a great group of people to be around, really generous. And it really was an amazing introduction to me to a town that some people say is this or that. But there were two guys there that I really got attached with. And again, they were up at 4:30 in the morning and lifting and then, all these things they had, but they were quite on top of their game. And they reminded me a little bit, because they were kind of surfing as well, of the movie Point Break. So I used to joke the next thing we're gonna do is rob a bank together. And then one day I said, we got to skydive because that's what the Point Break people do. So I booked it up for all of us and we all went skydiving. And of course they started skydiving solo on the back of that too. So it was this whole crew. And I got back a few months ago, and about a month after I'd been there, Connor, I got the word that one of the guys had committed suicide. And I just couldn't compute. I mean, this guy was the last guy, right? This is the guy that was like on top of it, super alpha, like I said, jacked, not that it has anything to do with your mental state, had the truck, has the this, has the that, everything just seemed to be going. And none of us could compute. And it just was really hard for us to take. And I felt like it was important to talk about, one, because I wanted to honor him because he was just the most incredible guy, such a generous person, and such a big part of that clique, but also really hard because I think it was probably one of the first close people I've had, or relatively close, that did that. And, I had to ask a lot of questions, and I guess we'll never know what really happened, but I think he started to feel like he just didn't have kind of enough to provide, and didn't have enough to kind of be that guy that maybe he was expecting himself to be. And I think it started eating away at him. Now, we'll never know, but I think it was something like that. And again, I just didn't think it would happen to someone like that. And it was hard, and it's something I'm sure we're all still processing, but it was something I also wanted to talk about because I'm sure there's people out there that either experience that or are thinking about that. And I don't know, I just wanted to get your thoughts, Connor.
Yeah, I mean, first off, that's brutal, man. And I'm sorry that you went through that, and it's rough. I think it's like 660,000+ men every year going to take their lives. And I think it's not only a huge challenge, but it's also one of the most unrecognizable things. Sometimes when a man takes his life, it's like apparent, but more often than not, it's how you've described. It's like, we didn't know. I didn't know. We're in shock. And there was this research that was done by Richard Reeves from the American Institute of Boys and Men. And there's two pieces of research actually I want to share with you. Maybe I'll share the one in the UK first, which is really interesting, also tragic. And what it showed was that 92% of men who took their life in the UK had sought out help. So they had gotten a counselor, a therapist, and they had sought out therapeutic help. Of those 92%, 80% of them were labeled as no risk or low risk for suicidal ideation. Okay? So the majority of men that seek out therapeutic and psychological help, our framework does a terrible job of identifying whether or not that man is actually at risk for suicide. And it's interesting because sometimes when you look at that, people will say, well, men just need to open up more. And men, they'll go back to like, well, if men just talked more, and this type of rhetoric. And so again, it's men don't have problems, men are the problem, right? And that doesn't actually help us support men's problems. What I think transpires often.
What the London Real Investment Club actually does for you, it gives you the keys to open that door to the inside deals. In the last 3 weeks, I've participated in 3 incredible deals: a layer 2 Bitcoin protocol, an incredible AI protocol. The deal flow is beyond what I expected. I don't think I've ever seen a model like this that just gives average folks the opportunity to be behind the deals, and that's exactly what we've done. Not only that, you get to hang out with Brian Rose every week. And for me, that was huge, because I look at Brian as somebody who's not only an expert in the space, and I think is on the leading edge, but just the leading edge of thought with London Real and the work he's doing there. To anyone who's taking a serious look at this, I know it's a big decision. It was a big decision for me and my family, and it is one of the best decisions I've ever made. So I wish you all the best and hope you come join us.
Is a couple of things. Number one is that a lot of men feel as though their ability to provide is very, very, very important to their sense of self and their sense of identity. And if that gets threatened, or when that gets threatened, it can be extremely damaging to that man's sense of self, his ego, his identity, and it can really destroy him, because he's built a life where people rely on him, and he's responsible for, paying paychecks and supporting people and doing those types of things. And so if that falls apart, he's going to suffer, because who he is and what he takes pride in is actually being of service to other people. And that gets missed out on a lot. The other piece of research that I think plays into this that's very important is Richard Reeves from the American Institute of Boys and Men. They studied notes that men left behind when they took their own lives. And what they found, and they were looking for commonalities, like what's the thread? And what they found was that one of the highest words that was used was useless. That when a man starts to feel useless, that he can't contribute in his marriage or his relationship, he can't provide financially, that uselessness is so damaging to him, not just because as a society we value that within men, but because as men, that's something that actually matters to us. It's something that we genuinely desire to do. It's important to us. And so when that gets infringed on is when a man's sense of self and sense of identity starts to collapse. So when men feel useless, that's a pretty big red flag. And so I always say to men, talk to your buddies, talk to the guys that are in your life. And if they're talking about how useless they feel or how useless they think they are, whether it's a joke or an aside, like dig into it. Get into it. Like, well, what do you mean by that? And are you actually struggling financially? And, where can you contribute? You'd be surprised at how often a man just wants to be of service and contribute something of value to the people that are around him, and to know that he actually can be useful and he can be of service and he can support other people. So those are the two things that come up for me. Who knows what that, I don't know the guy or what he was dealing with, who knows what he was going through, but generally speaking, those are the things. Like, one, it's just most men have thought about it and never talked about it. And most people don't know when a man's actually in that space. And I think that's brutal. I think that we should change that. We need to have a better system where men who are really struggling can get support, and that the depth of their struggle can actually be identified and then worked with.
Yeah, I spoke to another guest about this in Dubai, and he had come close in his past to committing suicide, and he said, Brian, it's not the mopey one, depressed ones you have to worry about. He said, because once I decided, he said, it was not even a big deal to me. I just made the decision. I was like, yep, I'm going to do this next week, and I'm just going to do it. And it was the useless. If I wasn't here, it wouldn't matter. The kids can do this. They can raise them. They can do that. It was the useless thing for him. And his advice was to just check in on people. Just kind of check in. Doesn't mean you have to go over and knock their door down, but yeah, check in on people. And I like your idea with that language. And the crazy thing is that with my friend Sam, who took his life, the crazy thing is that I think a couple people that maybe got a whiff of it, they're like, I can help. But like, that's not the problem. And that's the problem is that he doesn't want the help. He wants to feel useful. And in some ways, if you keep offering that help, he's actually not going to want to talk to you anymore, and it could get worse. And that's what I think it's important for men and women to understand maybe about men is that provide instinct, it's so powerful, drives so much of what I do. And when you take that away, man, it can't get much worse, I think, for a man than to take that away. It's one of the more humiliating things. And I think if people understand that, it's easier to talk about a lot of these issues.
Hey, I know investing in crypto is scary. It takes a real leap of faith because there are so many scams, rug pulls, and bad actors out there. It's a dangerous business, which is why 95% of people lose all their money. Well, that's why I created the London Real Investment Club, so you can access the hottest deals on the planet and use the crypto bull market to create the generational wealth that you deserve. Join my team of over 100 people from around the world that are making millions of dollars behind the scenes investing in blockchain, AI, Web3 games, DeFi, Bitcoin, and more. Don't miss out. Click the link below to book a call with one of my team now. But hurry, this bull market will end soon.
I know investing in crypto can be scary. That's why you gotta join the investment club. Pull the trigger. Let's do this.